Welcome to the conversation. As Jamaica draws closer to the upcoming local government elections, we seek to discuss issues surrounding that and more. For that discussion, we speak with political commentator and activist, to some extent, Dr. Nadine Spence, as well as online we'll speak with journalist and a member of the diaspora based in Philadelphia, Miss Andrea Lawful-Sanders. Welcome to the conversation. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
And before we get any further, I want to find out what were your views, or what are your views rather, on the recently concluded local government debates?
Mixed, really. The first debate was iffy. It wasn't very clear in terms of what the responses that the debaters, the minister, well, was there? I mean, no, the debaters were exploring. It wasn't very clear as to. I think there were too many answers that were in the weeds. Too much generalization. Seemed to be a lack of understanding of the intricacies of local government.
So would it give the impression that they were ill-informed in terms of how they should have approached it?
I think it was more a national debate on national issues that for most of the candidates. There were some people who, because a friend of mine was a part of the debate, Alan Bernard, and I saw where Alan struggled to raise some issues about how local government should work, but every time he tried to make a point, I think he was cut off by the moderator. I don't know if you saw that. But for the most part, it was a debate that was more located in the wheelhouse of central government. And so you never got enough of the intricacies of local government and the policies, legislative arrangements, and institutional arrangements that support the functioning of local government.
So long and short, you would say that they ignored local government issues? For
the most part. The first one. The second one was more in tune with issues that were related to local government. You got more of the language of local government, including speaking to the laws that govern and the rules that govern local government. So I thought the second one was much, much better. Good debate. And it was less hostile and toxic. The first one was very hostile, very toxic. The second one dealt less with the attitude of the two parties going at each other and more with some of the topics that are relevant to local government.
All right, so let me just turn over to Mrs. Andrea Lawful-Sanders. How are you? Did you get an opportunity to watch the recently concluded local government debates?
Did not, because we have so much going on here in America that our minds are completely unraveling with all the things that are taking place. But I was listening with great interest with Dr. Nadine because I didn't realize so much was happening at the local level while we were fighting with what's happening here in the United States of America. I'm sure you're aware of all of what's been going on.
Okay, but surely though you would have had some expectations by now as to what would be some of the issues or how we would want to position ourselves for local government elections vis-a-vis national debates. You know, there should be some differences between both. And based on what Dr. Spence just said, how would you think the disposition should have been?
Listen, the thing that bothers me the most is that we have a lot of talk about the machinations of government, but we don't talk about what the people really need and want and the data around that. So that's the part that I see not, we're not discussing when we should be talking about it. And it's going to cause a problem. I think people who think they should win elections vis-a-vis because they've been in government for XYZ amount of time are starting to find that people want way more than just talk about government itself. But how is government going to work to support them in their daily lives?
Oh, would that be a view that you share? You share those sentiments?
Yeah, I think people like big government, central government in our case, the members of parliament, ministers, and so on. I think people like to hear from them if they are more located within their reality on the ground. So to me, that is the kind of relationship that can exist between local government and central government. How, if local government is effective, if local government is doing what it is supposed to do, which is dealing with people at their doorstep. Yeah. So, for example, when we talk about roads and building highways, we talk a lot about the highways, but people talk about their community roads not being fixed. The whole heap of pothole in a community. Yes, we have beautiful highways, and you might drive on the highway once a week, but people are driving to their homes every day, back and forth several times, and are dropping in potholes. And that is the responsibility of local government. I think in our second debate, one of the things that was pointed out by the Minister of Local Government was that 80% of the road networks in Jamaica are actually local government roads. So the fact that people are dissatisfied with the roads in their local, in their community, speaks to the ineffectiveness of local government and the fact that people are not connecting with the fact that it is local government that delivers that responsibility, right? So, yeah, I do think that if local government is more effective, we are going to have more people connecting with our political reality, and perhaps could even be one of the responses to the apathy we are seeing in both kinds of election.
Oh, so we have oftentimes argued that government has done a poor job at communicating. Persons have asked for civics to be re-implemented in school. Do you think that those could have been, or that would have been one of the easiest ways to fix the whole idea of communication and communicating what are the roles and responsibilities of local government, though?
I think that's one. I think certainly the fact that most Jamaicans don't know the purpose of local government. The fact that this elections happened the way it did, because it was the campaigning was a general election campaigning. It wasn't a local government campaigning, yeah? So the fact that that happened, the fact that, so many people were okay with it, went along with it, is problematic. But I think what has derailed local government more than anything else is because it has been co-opted by both political parties. So because of how we are loyal to political parties, we are more interested in the successor of a political party than we are in the functioning of local government. And so that has caused us to not be as interested in any specifics about our political arrangement, because we're just interested in which party we vote for. So
let me throw that one at Mrs. Sanders now. Do you think that resocialization or education campaigns might serve to help the trust that we need to have in terms of public education? What are the roles and responsibilities of local government?
So I have to tell you that I believe that removing the conversations about civics in schools was deliberate. As I'm listening to Dr. Spence talk, it sounds exactly like what is happening in Philadelphia. People are being told they have to be, to really work with their parties, that they can't divert, they can't choose anyone else. So having civics in school is one thing. What I think is even more important, though, is finding people who have integrity that's running for office. That is no longer just about the title, but it's about how we're really serving the people that we run for office. Like, we run for office because we want to make things better. We get into office and nothing gets better, it only gets worse, right? And so a part of the apathy from people is like, doesn't matter who I vote for, when I'm gonna vote for you, I'm gonna vote for him. We're going to have the same thing going on. And living here in Philadelphia and hearing some of the things that are going on in Jamaica, for instance, there was a huge thing on social media telling us that we're not supposed to go to Jamaica, and that the government here in America is telling us not to.
The travel advisory.
Right, the advisory. And those of us who are Yardies, that are born and raised in Jamaica, say, when you go to Jamaica, you're not going to be in the parts of the country where some of these things are going on. And criminal activity is happening everywhere. When we tell people not to go, and listen, I understand, because I've been following the news about a lot of the crime activity, the criminal activity that has been happening there. But when the tourists come, they're not usually in those parts of Jamaica, right? When we take away tourism, what happens to the locals there? What does that mean for them? Because tourism is the main source of income for a lot of the people that are living on the island. So I agree, we need to bring civics back into the conversation. But I also agree that we need to vet our leaders, our local leaders, a little bit better, and not just choose them because the party chose them. That is a lot of what's going on everywhere right now.
So on the question of local leaders now, how do we vet? why is that important? How can we achieve that level of streamlining where we can assess someone's integrity so that we can be in line with what was just stated by
But you know
Andrea
how local government works though is that it really should be a leader from amongst the people, right? So there are smaller divisions, it's more intimate. You know, you have the members of parliament who have a parliamentary seat, and you have the divisions where you have smaller amounts of people voting for one person, which means that people ought to know their local representative a lot more intimately.
So I have had the opportunity of scanning through blue dot polls, Dan Anderson polls, and a number of them, with the exception of perhaps 2 or 3 parishes, Portland, St. Mary, and another, majority of the individuals do not know who their local government representatives are. And when we say majority, we're talking about upwards of 70%. How does that factor, or what kind of light would you be able to shed on that issue that we're speaking about?
I mean, it speaks to the relative kind of obscurity of local government. We're not interested in it. So even if the councillor lives next door, a lot of people are not interested because people are like, wait for. What is the point of local government? He's a councillor. Yeah, let's moving right along, you know. We don't see the need for it. We don't understand the role of the local leader in our lives. And because we don't put emphasis on it, they're not the things that they should be doing. Because, you know, the councillors are supposed to be the ones ensuring that civic organizations are functioning. It is from the civic organizations that they choose people to form the local authorities in the particular division. So they are supposed to be very familiar, the way our law is set up. They are supposed to be very familiar with the people in their divisions.
But we argue that they should be taken from among the people. So it's based on availability.
The people in their locality, right?
Yes. So you find then that they might be at a disadvantage, and sometimes you find that some councillors might not feel as though they're at the educational level that they ought to be. So some of the decisions that are to be made are not being made because they don't know, or they're not even au fait with what is required of them.
Right.
And there's not even a job description.
Because of it, one, I don't believe in this discussion about job descriptions for parliamentarians because the Constitution and the laws that govern those particular things lays out what the work is supposed to be. Local government is concerned about roads, is concerned about lights, street lights, it's concerned about the indigent, it's concerned about the poor. The law lays it out. We know what the responsibility is, concerned about local water, how getting water in my pipes or so that I can consume. It's concerned about the things that are necessary, parks in my community, markets. Those are the things that local government should be concerned about. That's one. But we have 228 divisions across Jamaica, right? And you see how small it is cut up? It is cut up very, very small. It's not so much the qualification that makes you a good leader. She spoke about it, it's your integrity. It's how the people know you. It's your heart for service. It's how you know your community and you know its needs. It's how you remain authentic to the people at that level. It's how you keep going back to ensure that they can hold you accountable. It's how when you get resources from central government or through the local authorities, you share up those resources for all the people in your community. And if people know that, they will be less concerned with your qualification as to your heart for service. Right now, we just pick a whole heap of things because we're not dissatisfied and we don't really know what we feel quarrel about. Right?
All right. I like the way you're putting the things together. But more on that when we return. We go to our first break. You're watching The Conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Conversation. We are joined online via Zoom with Miss Andrea Lawful-Sanders, a journalist out of Philadelphia and a member of the Jamaica diaspora. Just before the break, Mrs. Sanders, we were just looking at the idea of well, local government and its importance. And one of the things that came to mind was, could it be that it is too, well, all politics is local, or it should be local, but is it a case whereby we have made politics too global so persons feel disconnected to it?
I think what is happening across the diaspora, not just in Jamaica, but around the world, is deliberate to keep us disconnected in such a way that we become disenfranchised, and we're blaming systems instead of blaming the people that are running the systems. And so right now, what's happening locally for us here in Philadelphia is that they are focusing on the local elections, but not for good reasons. They want to use local government now, just like Dr. Spence discussed about the roads, about school boards, etc., to shift and change how government works to our detriment. So books are being removed from schools if they're by Black authors. We're being told that, we can't talk about anything that has to do with race, bias, et cetera, et cetera. When we talk about poverty, we are blamed for the poverty versus looking at the systems and the people behind the poverty at the local level that would address the issue in a way that people will feel like they're being served. So I believe, and I fully believe this, I've been following politics for years, that this is absolutely deliberate. To have people say, you know what, I don't know who's going to do what, so I'm not going to do it anymore. And I have seen local leaders stand up to run for office and have been summarily crushed. Right? Their petitions have been questioned. Their qualifications have been questioned. And just like Dr. Spence spoke, listen, if you have a community leader that understands the community at the base level, when they get into office, they are then onboarded. They're supposed to be onboarded and treated and given a little bit of training that says, this is how this works at this level. If you need any question, if you have any questions, have us help you, etc. But instead, there's this whole lot of, you don't belong here, you're not smart enough, etc., etc. And when has any other government worked without the local people? Local people have been taught that they no longer have power. But when we watch what's going on across the diaspora, we see that when the local man rises up, things change. So the objective is to keep the local man feeling frustrated and disillusioned and not paying attention to anything else other than the fact that they're not getting their services done, so them just now vote. Does that make sense?
So in light of all that you have said, though, what is the general mood of Jamaicans in and around Philadelphia, especially as it relates to Jamaica and the local government structure?
They want to help. I belong to a group called Team Jamaica Bickle. They come in, the athletes come in for the pen relays every year. And we have quite a bit of conversation about Jamaica. How can we support our country, right? How can we invest in different businesses and ideas that's going on in Jamaica, take our monies and not just invest in the countries where we live, but back at home. We hear the conversations, we hear about the plights, we hear about education. My heart is broken. I went to Meadowbrook High School, and I'm telling you, the education that I got at high school versus what I got at the college level, there was just nothing to compare it to, because the level that we got in Jamaica when I graduated in 1984 was so fantastic. And then I'm now sitting in conversations with teachers who are saying that our children are not, accepting and holding on to the things. But I do know in a large part, it's because of what's happening across the diaspora. So goes America, so goes the rest of the world, right? So our children are falling into line with all of that. And we see the same things that are happening here, happening there. So we, the folks that are born and raised in Jamaica, our ultimate goal is to not just talk about the problem and massage it, but to find out how we can support you the best way we know how. Last year, the Prime Minister of Jamaica was in Philadelphia, and that was a part of the conversation we were having. He brought local business leaders here, and they began showing the things that they had. And I, as a radio show and television host, began telling people about the products. Please go online and support the products as much as you can, so we can build wealth on a micro and macro level to the average citizens of Jamaica. So that's what we're doing from our angle.
All right. Wow. So, Dr. Spence, how can we hear, how would you suggest that we leverage the support that the diaspora is clearly willing and able to give, so that we can, one, maintain their relevance, and two, we can grow collectively?
Well, one of the things I know about, like, half of my family live abroad. And this idea that our diaspora doesn't live separate from us, right? Like, any minute now, somebody is going to send a money or send something for you. You know, our diaspora is always involved in life in Jamaica. Like my brothers and sisters, in the mornings we chat, and they're always involved. They want to know they're involved. So I think our diaspora doesn't exist separate from us. They are now involved. They're not voting and contributing to the electoral process, some of them, but some people come and vote. But what we're talking about now is organizing the diaspora to intervene in Jamaica in an organized way. And I think that, you know, what Mrs. Lawful-Sanders, I call you Lawless, but Miss Lawful-Sanders outlined was, you know, that the diaspora knows how to organize itself, and it is contributing to Jamaica. There was never a point when the Jamaican diaspora wasn't a part of the Jamaican economic success.
But it seems that the disconnect is therefore then on our part, where we're not leveraging.
It's how we talk, man. You see, when we talk like we're American, like we're up there. So no, man. Remember, I grew up with my family, with my brothers sending money to my mother to send us to school back in September, sending the barrel at Christmas, sending the extra money at Christmas. That's how our diaspora work. They do not exist separate from us. Yeah, I am in Jamaica when my big brother, who is in his 70s, need help to clean him house. Him buy a ticket and him say, come fix up my things them for me. Come sort out my house. We don't live separate from each other. So for me, I think our diaspora is so intricately involved in our everyday lives. I think what we might ask is, how do we organize the diaspora for business success? You know, how do we create laws to make it easier for them to do some of the organizing work around developing businesses and so on here? And I think that that's a conversation we could have, and I think that's a conversation that is happening. We keep to, you know, how do they invest in Jamaica as opposed to investing abroad? You know, how do they build businesses here? How do we make it easier for them to build business here and to experience economic success here? And I think those are some of the conversations we can have. We're talking about having the conversation here, but we also need them to do well abroad so that we can do well here, because so many of us could not have done well without our relatives abroad. So I think our diaspora is always a part of us. They're always contributing, always making sure that people here are okay. And so I don't know how to have a conversation with the diaspora apart from us. You know, they're so much involved in the day-to-day lives of the average Jamaican.
So I'll turn that question over to you, Mrs. Lawful-Sanders, in terms of how do you think we here at home can leverage the fact that you are capable and you're ready and willing to give the support that is necessary, not from afar, but to be intricately involved in how Jamaica grows so that it can become that place that we have always envisioned it to be?
I listened to Dr. Spence, and she's absolutely correct. You know, we have conversations with our people in Jamaica every single day. We're understanding what they're sharing the news with us, all of that. I think in order for us to become more intricately involved, that the local government has to remove some of the barriers, right? We are willing to operate, we're willing to work with them, you know, work with each other during business. Nobody wants us to succeed more than us. And as Dr. Spence says, we continue to have those conversations. So I would suggest that if local government in Jamaica would remove some of the barriers, because I've had conversations with some of the business owners in Jamaica, and they say, you know, the taxes that they have to pay, and you know the loops that they have to go through from a local level and a macro level to get what they need. We have people here in the United States that will say, all right, you have a business, I'm thinking about Brescia, right? The backpack. I must have bought about 5 or 6 of them, and all my friends began buying them in America, and then we began highlighting them. And I said, how can we invest in the business? We would love local government to tell us how we can invest in the small business owners, remove some of the barriers for them. So, because everybody would be making money at that point, right? We're leveraging what's happening in the island. People are able to do something other than tourism to get them to a better place in life, right? And we here would feel like we're doing something that would help our people, and at the same time leveraging the monies that are growing. You understand? Because here in the United States, for those of us who are across the diaspora, London, Canada, wherever else, you know, we feel sometimes like we're adrift because we want to help and we know every bit can make a buckle, but the barriers are there. So having the conversation with local government along with the business owners, and according to your current Prime Minister, Andrew Holness, this is actually happening. That's why they came to Philly last year and had this whole conversation. But since then, we've heard absolutely nothing. I have heard absolutely nothing. And I'm completely entrenched in what goes on in Jamaica. Am I making sense?
Yes. So are you of the opinion then that it's not happening fast enough?
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all. And as a people, we are so creative. There are things that we have done. When I looked at the Breccia bags and I said, oh my goodness, this is not made out of real leather, and the bag holds up. I travel everywhere with this bag, and all my friends, my American friends, my Jamaican parts of the Jamaican diaspora, and all over the place are saying, we want this bag. Do you know what we could have done to leverage that company if things were moving in such a direction that we could help them while they're doing what they're doing? I'm hoping Dr. Spence is hearing me and hearing what I'm saying. And if I am off base, then let me know. But we have a $1.3 trillion spending habit in the United States alone. Imagine what we could do with that if we were able to leverage it in such a way to help more Black businesses, especially from the places where we're born and raised.
What do you think some of those barriers, though, that Mrs. Lawful-Sanders spoke about? What do you envision some of those barriers to be?
I think we have some real issues with the way our economy is structured and the ease. We always talk about Jamaica and this ease of doing business report. And so one of the things that I know that has been happening is, and not just for diaspora businesses, but for Jamaican businesses too, for investors who come, that just the way our bureaucracy works, it's slow, it takes long. People don't normally follow through. You will make an application and you don't hear anything about it in 6 months. You know, there's not an efficiency and a purposefulness in how we do work. And so a lot of what happens really is about the bureaucracy and how do we move things faster? How do we get an application or something through the process? How do we not tell people you have to take it to the building next door, you know? So there has to be a way that we rely on the technology. So if people are living abroad, they might want to start doing things. But you don't necessarily have to carry the concrete document and take it to this person. There should be a way that we talk a lot in Jamaica, at least the people in government, about joined-up government. But a lot of people say when they try to access this joined-up government, it's not as joined up, you know? So there are ways that we need to be more efficient in the execution of our business processes. I know I hear a lot from the Minister of Industry, Commerce, that ministry, talking about making sure that it's easier for businesses to get through the processes that are necessary to make them legal and operational. And I think that's where much of the issue is. I think a lot of people also want to invest in our culture, you know, in the creative industries, and there are also challenges there. But I know that organizations like JAMPRO is also doing a lot of work with connecting with the diaspora and exploring business opportunities in Jamaica. I mean, there are some good things about us, like, you know, the Constitution, for example, allows Jamaican citizenship up to about the 3rd or 4th generation. You can claim your citizenship and come here and do business. I think it's the bureaucracy, the ease of doing business. That's where we have much of the challenges. All
right, over to you, Ms. Lawful-Sanders. Just before we go to our second break, what would be the top 2 things that we can do to leverage your support, to utilize or to maximize, rather, the support that you guys have there, so that you don't feel adrift and that both of us can mutually benefit from what each of us have to offer to the other?
To Dr. Spence's point, make the processes simpler. Just make them simpler, and allow us, you know, to join in conversations. I mean, we're in the age of AI, to join in conversations without having to be in the room, to be able to send the paperwork, ask the questions. I have a friend that left New Jersey and is now back in Jamaica with a farm because he was trying to have somebody do the work there, and the processes was just so, it was too much. And so he packed up his whole house, his family and everything, and he's now living back in Jamaica. Make it a more streamlined, simpler, and instead of us waiting months and years to get one piece of the puzzle taken care of, have systems in place where it would take weeks, not that long. So that's the main thing for us. because we're sitting on money here that we could really utilize to help our country and our people and then ourselves. That's the thing that sticks with me. Streamline the processes.
Okay. All right, so we just want to thank you very much, Mrs. Andrea Lawful-Sanders, for taking the time out to sit and chat with us. We go to our next break. Continue to stay with us. You're watching The Conversation. Welcome back. So just before the break, we covered a number of things, but let us now get into the fact that local government elections is right upon us.
Monday.
Yes, right upon us. And so there are a number of hotspots to watch, and both parties, both major political parties, because right now we have 37 independent candidates of the 499 persons that have offered themselves for service. But tell us about the political parties now. One, the incumbents, they are lobbying on performance, and the other, based on what have been said, they are lobbying on promises. And that's what political parties do. You make a promise, or you place something before the people and say, this is what you should vote on. Who do you think is best positioned to solicit the vote? Not saying that they'll win or they'll lose, but just to solicit persons and people's attention, though.
Okay, so what the analysis I can give you is this, that the PNP has been out in the field campaigning for a long time. And they raised the temperature on the local government election. They leveraged it as national election. So the conversations that are being had about local government elections are really not local issues, yeah? We are really having a central government kind of debate around local government. It's still
But do you think that would help or hurt them? Because right now we're looking at locally we should be voting. Do you think that will actually help or hurt?
Who, the PNP or the JLP?
Well, the PNP.
The PNP. It's hurting them because they've been out there too long. And so when you're out there for such a long time, there's a kind of sameness to your message and your methodology, and you don't excite people, because politics is a very momentary thing. It's how you make people feel in the moment. And so there are some people who are diehard, so are going to get excited and know who they're voting for before there was even a talk. They were always going to vote, right? Those people are set. And the PNP was able, I think, to get the support of those people. Some of them had been kind of like disenchanted with the party, but I think we're seeing evidence that some of them have come back and are really re-engaging the process. But what we are seeing since the election was announced is that when Andrea Honey steps on the ground, he really excites voters and he changes the narrative, and that's what has happened. I think the JLP, having gone on the road, is now changing the political narrative in respect of support for either party. So I think it's who makes it to Monday, who creates the biggest change, or can the PNP sustain the momentum that they had, and will the JLP build up enough momentum so that they bypass where the JLP had gone, the PNP had gone to.
So still, it boils down to the fact that people are still voting for the two leaders.
Yeah, but that's what look here. That's what our democracy is about. Our democracy is a representative democracy, and it is a party democracy. Even if it is proportional representation, globally, that's how democracies are represented. It's the only game in town. So it's not like people are going to look. What would people vote for? They might vote for them party. That's what parties are supposed to do. Parties are supposed to. A political party is supposed to welcome you at 18, and it should be starting that work from your 6. Telling you about its dream of a society, what it wants for you as a young person, as a middle-aged person, as a father, as a parent, as an older person, and getting you to buy into that idea of the kind of society it wants to build. And then you join and you pay money to sustain its functioning. And then when you vote, based on the fact that you are aligned to those ideologies and you're aligned to what it says it is going to do, you vote for your party. So
tell me about the messaging now in light of what you have just said. The JLP says building dreams, building communities, building Jamaica. And the PNP says time come now. The Prime Minister, as well as the Minister of Information, has been criticizing the PNP's message as empty, lacking vision, and so on. And I'm sure that the head of the People's National Party is also saying the same about the Prime Minister's message. What are your views on that?
On the messaging?
Yes.
I don't know. And I think if I could look at the two parties in the public space, what I will say is they are both effective at putting a particular perspective on the other one's response. You know what I mean? They are good spin doctors. They've been very good. Every time somebody puts something out in the public, they reinterpret it and they have their spin on it. So it's hard to see the edge that one is having in the messaging itself, because as soon as one puts out a message, the other one reinterprets it and puts out its spin on it. So there is a kind of a nullifying effect happening in terms of the messaging in the public space. I think another point too is that, as you rightfully said, the JLP said we are campaigning on performance. This is what we've done, and you can trust us. And they're also messaging the PNP as the cause of our economic travails and problems. How effective that is, I don't know, you know. I think it's a message to the base. That's a message for the base. Those are the people who are not going to change. They vote on loyalty, right? The people like me who would like to see your plans, they will put out a manifesto. I heard that the PNP put out its manifesto today. And we will take the manifesto and we will go over it and say, okay, these are the plans I like, and this is what I like, and so on.
But with the manifesto coming out a few days before the election, do you think that's good enough for persons who want to make a valid judgment?
Of course it is. Like, it's not a whole, we still kind of know who we want to vote for. We didn't know.
So already have that in mind.
Most people are not going to say, okay, sit down at tea, or that's not the kind of people that we are. We're a small country, right? And loyalty is what drives politics. We kind of have an idea of where we want to go, but some people would choose not to vote if they don't see good plans. Like, somebody might say, I don't see no manifesto, you have to convince me. But we already know that we would vote along these lines, but we are not going to give people our vote without them at least demonstrating that they have plans.
So what we're looking at, there's roughly 61% of persons, based on the last conducted, or the most recently conducted poll, that they're either not going to vote or they're undecided. And you're saying that with a manifesto being published a few days before election, and with the messaging that we have been having since the announcement, you think that would be enough to sway?
Those people will not be swayed, though. They want another message, and it's not going to come from the political leaders.
What might that be, though?
People have lost faith in our democracy. So people don't understand how democracy works. A lot of people are very cynical about political parties. A lot of people are extremely cynical about the political parties in Jamaica. And those people are on the sidelines kind of watching to see, you know, let me see what they might do. But they're not going in, they're not stepping in, because we have also demonized our politics. And so people feel as if I step in and I show support, then it looks like I'm done, so I'm not well thinking, or it looks like I don't have no sense. And so there's a way that we have demonized our politics, where those 61% of the people who say they're not participating feel as if it's the good thing to do. It's the superior, it's what those of superior intellect to do. Me better than that, me couldn't do that. So they need another message. They need another kind of message. Young people are also not so very much informed of the role they ought to play and the power that they have. They think it's not going to bring any change to my life. Why bother? So when I said there's another message that is needed, I mean those people who are on the sidelines, who are not involved in the process, they need to be encouraged. They need an evangelist. I don't know who that evangelist is, if it's the education system for those who are still in formal education, or if it's going to be the electoral office, or if it's going to be the political parties reimagining themselves and seeking to gain another set of followers. I don't know who yet, but certainly those people need another kind of message. They are not going to be be convinced to vote based on the manifesto. They will not be.
All right. So what are some of the hot seats that we can watch going into this election?
I think from the polls, like you, I watch the polls. The only thing that I saw that made me curious was what was happening in Portland, what was happening in Trelawney, and what was happening in St. James. The parishes, I don't know the division specifically to say, because the last polls was not a local government division by division polling, it was a constituency parish polling. So more parish than constituency.
We remember that
even.
most of the poll seem to intimate that they are not necessarily attached to any particular party, especially for St. James. Is that what you're looking at, or is something else that you
No, because it's curious that St. James would be so kind of distant from both parties. And I'm not sure what it is that says about the JLP. Is it that people are disenchanted with Cornwall Regional Hospital? Because a lot of work has happened in St. James, you know. Is it the crime?
So we look at the tourism minister, we're looking at the GenSec, we're looking at a number of individuals who are from from St. James, and the fact that they are not attached or they don't seek to be involved as they ought to. Is there a change there?
There are several things that you should note. Remember, that is where the Prime Minister announced the election in St. James.
Yes.
Which means that the JLP was thinking that something special needs to be done there.
So you're saying that they're quite possibly au fait with the fact that
of course they would be.
Okay.
They know, man. They know. It's what happens when they hit the ground now. I don't know if it is that I haven't been paying enough attention to the specific campaigning in St. James to see how the JLP is rolling out its campaign in St. James. But when I saw the polls, I was a little bit, I wondered what was happening in St. James, right? Now, remember, St. James is where the JLP also built the Harmony Park, the huge, beautiful park. And
they're currently working
on the hospital, but it's been going on for a while, and they're building the new children's hospital. But St. James has had a spot of bother with crime, and the interventions don't seem to be working in any sustained kind of way. A lot has changed with tourism. We have the tourism workers pension plan. A lot of workers in Montego Bay would have benefited from that. Did they sign up to it? Do they know what it is about? Did they take up the offer? So we have to ask ourselves those questions, because it is a central government-focused election. It's not a local government-focused election, right?
So that I think that seeks to clarify why you would say that it hurts more than help in terms of the focus.
Right.
But then over to Trelawney now, what are some of the issues? What are some of the things that jumped out at you from the polls that you looked at?
Well, Trelawney, again, remember the last election, there are 2 seats in Trelawney, last election, in the general elections.
Yeah.
The JLP won both. 2 women in that area. But again, that was me looking at it from a central government, the members of parliament.
And Dalrymple Filbert.
Right. So did Dalrymple Filbert stepping back from politics cause her constituents to feel some kind of way?
But she's still active in the
Yeah, she's still
community.
active, but her national profile was damaged, and people love her. The people in her constituency love her, really, really love her. And that's, for me, there are supposed to be some plans, I think, about building. If you notice, there are a lot of activities happening in Falmouth.
Yeah.
Falmouth has deep issues around sewage and water. But, you know, how do people feel about it? Are those the issues? What is local government? You know what I mean? I could say these are the issues, but again, we're imposing a central government framework on local government. I don't know what the issues are. I know that there were some tensions about Miss Hamilton's leadership and her relationship with some of her councillors. Have those been sorted out? I don't know.
Wow. So now that we have looked at that, Portland. You mentioned Portland as well.
Yeah.
And that's the power couple in the East now. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Vaz. Do you think that they have the wherewithal to pull it together?
Well, you know, a lot of people say when the polls were being taken, there was a huge road rehabilitation project going on in Portland, and it was painful. and people felt aggrieved by it, that it took so long. And now that the roads are sorted out, you're going to see massive changes in Portland. Again, those are national. Those are more issues for Anne-Marie and Daryl than they are for the councillors on the ground.
Do you think they have done enough though to secure the confidence of their councillors?
Remember, Anne-Marie Vaz came into politics and snatched a seat that was a traditional JLP seat, PNP seat.
PNP.
A seat that had a long history of PNP representation. Is it that was a fluke? It was a 1 or 2 time thing, and now people are going back. Now that the PNP base is being re-energized, is it that people are going back to their regular way of voting? So is that what we saw? Again, I don't know if they've done enough. I don't know that they haven't, but I don't know that they have. But I think the outcome of this election will tell us if Mrs. Vaz has a solid hold on her constituency, or if her win was just because people were upset with the PNP because of their internal fighting, right? So, but again, I so hate to do that, because that is talking about central government elections on local government, but because it kind of makes it difficult for me to stick to my principles with this, Kwame, because I don't like the conversation about central government imposed on local government.
Well, with that, let us go to our final break, where we speak on the municipalities and the divisions. You're watching The Conversation. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Conversation, where we're looking at the local government divisions and municipalities. I am joined by Dr. Nadine Spence, political analyst. So just before the break, you started looking at the whole idea of going against the principles as far as the local government elections are concerned and how we manage it. Do you think then that the MPs are not empowering the councillors to do as much as they ought to? So,
but that shouldn't happen. The MPs now have no space to empower no councillor. The only conversation that should be had about local government and central government is how do you transfer resources so that we can get to do work at the local level.
But there's spark no? And
yeah,
I think
but one of the
stated that the minister stated that no one will be sidelined.
Yeah, but you see, and then I could ask the question, should the Prime Minister have said, okay, we are going to be transferring this amount of money to local government so that we could focus on building local roads rather than to have the MP be a part of it. The MP don't need to be a part of it. That's part of the debate in local government, Do you need the MP to supervise the councillor? No, are 2 distinct areas of government. You don't need to behave like, even this whole business of having people go out, be like, oh, my councillor is my assistant, is my administrative assistant. No, it's undermining the power of local government. Local government ought to stand on its own. And the most important conversation to be had is how do we transfer resources needed by local government from central government to local government for local government to do its work. And then the ministers and the MPs go do them work, which is them legislators and policy makers. We don't need them to fix the road in the community. They have some other things to do. Yeah, our system of government is pretty cool. It's good. It's the practice of it that has problematized it.
And that's where the disconnect is.
And that's where the disconnect is.
All right, tell me now about, we're looking at the one where you're able to directly elect your mayor. Tell us about Portmore. What are your views on that municipality, Portmore?
Jeez, I don't know has it done anything for Portmore? I don't know. Who is the mayor of Portmore? I don't know if it has helped. I don't know if directly electing the mayor created the kind of, but then again, we have a kind of retarded local government that has been crippled by the relationship with central government.
But Leon Thomas seemed to be doing a fair job, you know, to his credit, based on what we have heard.
Yeah.
So there's some level of autonomy that he has.
I know,
but you don't look impressed, though.
I think local, and it's not necessarily with him, I think local government itself would do better if it was more respected by central government and given the resources and left on its own to do much of its work, and then account for the resources that is allocated to it, because we have good accounting systems.
So tell us about his opponent now, Markland Edwards. What do you make of him? And
I don't know the people that the council. I know Markland from radio, perhaps like you. That's it. I know what were they? The two something live crew, the two live crew. That's it. I know he's of the Christian trad faith. And he seems to be like that. I can't tell you anything because I don't know, because it's local. Portmore people supposed to, you know, but they seem to be good representatives, meaning that people have good choices.
So do you think that it's a safe place for the People's National Party? That's what we're trying to get.
If it's a safe seat,
yes,
Portmore?
if Portmore is safe for them, yes.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I can't answer that. I don't know that I have the information to make that conclusion. I would if I had, but I don't have that information.
All right. So we're coming.
You
into
want
Kingston
me to make
now.
predictions?
We're coming into Kingston
don't
now.
have the information to make predictions.
So KSAMC seems to be the prized bull as far as the political parties are concerned. Which direction do you think that's most likely to lean, based on the information that you might have?
The information from the polls suggests that the PNP was ahead in the Kingston and St. Andrew metropolitan region. I mean, I don't know if they are, as I say, what's the mayor? Name of the mayor?
Sir Williams.
Yeah, he seemed to have been an effective mayor, very much a champion for Kingston. I was very impressed with his work in Kingston in reviving the relevance of the old city. Kingston is a remarkable city with a remarkable history. And I think I liked the way he treated with that history. I interviewed him a couple of times and I was on another station and talked to him, you know, because of my own interest in Kingston, and recognized that he knew a lot of the history and knew what needed to be done to put Kingston back in as pride of place in the Caribbean, as the Caribbean's leading city, as the Jamaica's historical center, as our cultural capital. I got that he got that. That he was really a champion for Kingston. So I was impressed with that. His local governance in terms of water, toilet, cemetery, I don't know about that. I don't see much about that to impress me enough to say he delivered on the critical areas of local government. I don't know enough about that to say that definitively. Because of his work and the work of his councillors, the JLP will retain their control of the KSAMC, and that I don't know that I could say that. Well,
the People's National Party is also of the view that they are able to regain some amount of leverage in the KSAMC, especially with the fact that they lost Venetia Phillips and Carrie Douglas. They are pretty much poised to reclaim, thinking that they'll reclaim those seats that they have lost, those divisions. What do you think of that?
I think those 2 points, those two councillors present a good point for us to observe, because will they retain their seats? That's one.
We're talking about Trafalgar Division, Papine Division.
Yeah, will they retain their seats?
What are your views on that? You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think those areas are really strong PNP areas, and I don't know. I don't know if it is that people are more aligned to those councillors or they're aligned to their party. I think they're more aligned to their party than they are to the individual councillors. But I think for me, that is the true test of those divisions.
Oh, so you're saying that the folks in those divisions are more aligned to the parties vis-a-vis the individuals, and the fact that they have moved from might actually render them incapable of regaining those seats.
Yeah, it might see them losing their seats. I think that's those. If you were to look at, you know, what are the big things coming out of this election, it would be whether or not Carrie Douglas and Venetia and Felicia Finish can retain their seats. And it would tell you if it is that people were more aligned to them as leaders than the PNP.
Well, you heard Venetia Phillips in the debate. What were your views of how her presentation was?
Venetia is a
herself
consummate political debater. She knows how to get her opponent. You know, she was the JLP's attack person in that debate. She's savvy, she articulate, and she knows how to turn an argument on its head. So, argumentation-wise, she was very good. I don't know, I don't know if it was necessarily for me a local government debate, that debate. You understand? But she is a very good debater, and she clearly knows how to spin an argument and make it work for her team.
So she's able to ruffle a lot of feathers.
Yeah, man. And she clearly she was the best debater on the JLP side. You know, she knows how to debate. But
all in all, what we have been looking at, because what I'm trying to pull from you, and you'll be reluctant in terms of issue.
I'm not reluctant. If me didn't know, me would I tell you. So, I'm not reluctant.
Because what we want to get is to see, can we call the KSMC for the Jamaica Labour Party?
No, I mean, no, I don't think right now. I don't think we have the information to do so. I don't have the information to do so. The Jamaica Labour Party says it's not losing Kingston and St. Andrew. That's what it says. In my conversation with people in the JLP, they said, no, sir, we're not losing KSMC. We're not. That is not one of the areas that we are worried about. There might be spots of bother in other places. I think people feel like Portland was a spot of bother. They feel like Trelawney might have been a spot of bother. If you look on the campaign trail anyway, see Horace Strang walking behind a candidate, they perhaps feel that that person needs shoring up. But certainly I don't think, they think that KSMC was a problem.
All right, so let's go further afield now. Westmoreland, the Blue Dot polls, as far as the Blue Dot polls are concerned, Westmoreland is for the Jamaica Labour Party. However, the People's National Party have stated clearly that their intent is to go back and to reclaim that parish.
Which is like, I mean, it's whether or not the PNP is where it was before the last two elections, so that, remember, Westmoreland is traditionally PNP country.
Remember what Sir Dayton Campbell has said, you know, you can put your money on it, you can bet your stakes on it, that he will be getting...
You know, somebody sent me, and I don't know if you saw it, somebody sent me this thing this morning where the people in Westmoreland and Eastern are, well, at least, I don't know if the people, but somebody was really quarreling about Dayton. That's a constituency I grew up next to. Westmoreland and Eastern, they're very loyal. They were very loyal to Luther Buchanan, who was, they felt, pushed out and replaced by Dayton, and they don't know where Dayton is from. Now, so there are still some internal squabbles in the PNP that I think might hamper their voters coming out to vote. And again, people are voting like this is a general elections and not a local government election. So people might be voting for the MP and not the councillor, right? So it's whether or not people have accepted wholeheartedly Dayton and see him as a good replacement for Luther, who come from Darliston and grew up in the constituency and has strong ties to the people in the community. He lost in the last elections, and so I think the PNP might have seen him as a candidate that is not as viable in Westmoreland, and so they would have drawn for Luther.
So remember that was stated.
Dayton.
We have 37 independent candidates. Do you think that they'll be able to effectively hurt either political parties in this election?
No, I don't. I think people vote for their political parties.
But some are breakaway. You know? Some are actually coming from either the PNP or the Jamaica Labour Party.
But I think people vote for political parties.
So persons vote for party irrespective.
People who will the majority of the people who will vote in this election are going to vote for their political party. I would love to be surprised. I think it would be such good talking points. You'd have 4 interviews about that if one of those people wins. So I would hope to be wrong, but I suspect I might not be.
You suspect that you won't be wrong any at all?
No.
Wow. So call it. We want you to tell us.
No, you can't do that. I give you the things as I see it. I think the polls indicated that the JLP had a a
4%.
lead.
There's a 4%
lead.
lead.
But a small lead within the margin of error. When you consider the margin of error, it's very meager. But then again, when the polls were done, the JLP hadn't entered the campaign fray.
So right now it was 9-4 in favor of the Jamaica Labour Party. Do you think, in light of all that has been happening, do you think that will change?
When you said 9-4, what you mean?
In terms of the Jamaica Labour Party had 9 seats.
Oh,
9 of the divisions.
Divisions.
Yeah. So 9 municipalities were there, and the PNP had 4. So in light of all that has been happening,
you want me to predict this election?
And we're moving
Call
along.
Blue Dot and let them show. It's hard because you see, for somebody like me, I would have to see what the polls are saying, because if polls give you a temperature, or I would have to be driving around the country and getting a sense of what is happening. But I haven't been, and so I'm hesitant. You know, I used to drive around behind political parties and see what is happening at the meetings, you know, at nights, and kind of get a sense of what people are. But I haven't done that this election. I'm relying on the polls. So
right now, as far as the polls are concerned, the Jamaica Labour Party is within the margin of error, even though they're still ahead. So it would show that the People's National Party is getting better, but they're still not presumably where they would like to be.
And as I say, I think an important factor is when the JLP started campaigning. And if you notice, the JLP has really been putting in the miles in terms of campaigning. The Prime Minister has been using his popularity. From the polls, we saw that he was still the most popular politician in Jamaica. So he's been using that. That was good information for him to go around the country and to get people to say, you know, remember, it's me, Andrea. And his speech in Montego Bay is me, Andrea. You know me, I'm Bridget. Me could be your son, me could be your father. No, but I know me old enough to be somehow no father. It's me. I'm the one going back. So he's tapping into his idea that, you know, once Jamaicans remember who he is, they're going to come out and vote for him. So the question to ask is, would that have had an impact since the JLP announced the elections and started actively campaigning? Would they have outpaced the JLP? We don't know, because we haven't had a poll since then. Where they were gathering momentum since the polls that I commented on in September. They were gathering momentum as well.
But you're an analyst. You're able to make valid judgment based on some of the things that you observe.
No, I'm an analyst. I'm not one to predict a win. The polls tell us one thing. I trust the polls, and the polls tell us that the JLP has a lead, but from a general elections lead. You see, when you see that 2%, when you share that 2% across the island, you know, it looks very different, you know. So 2%, but you would have to go division by division and see what that 2% means. It's difficult to do division by division, but what it tells us is that the JLP has a lead, even though it's a small, it's not a huge lead, right? Would I go with the polls? I would. I think Blue Dot's polls have been accurate. So I would say if we go with Blue Dot's conclusions, we would see the JLP winning the local government elections. I don't know if it would mean that they retain all nine of the divisions of the parish councils or municipalities that they have. I don't know how that will work out in terms of the 9-4 split, but I think we might very well see. And I think their party has gathered momentum since they stepped on the campaigning field.
All right.
Yeah.
So let me take this opportunity to thank you very much, political analyst and commentator, Dr. Nadine Spence. And thank you very much for staying with us. This has been The Conversation. I am Kwame Thomas. Do have yourselves a good one.